What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. Some time ago we got a peek at the original beta version of Gold and Silver from way back in the day. And by sneak peek, I mean that we learned everything about it. Of most interest to everyone was the actual Pokemon in the primitive version of the games. And the fact that some of them were different than how we saw them, some of them were missing, and some of them were never seen again. It's not exactly timely to talk about, but some Imperials have wondered my opinions about these Pokemon. So just to be different, I thought we might look at it through a silly award ceremony of sorts. We'll start with the award for the most mind-bogglingly out-of-place evolution, which goes to Bayleaf. Chikorita and Meganium are pretty much exactly how they were when we met them. But for some reason, the stand-in for Bayleaf is wildly different. It's some sort of blooming flower with either a giant creepy eye or a weird fungus mouth. It's just so strange because usually such a drastic metamorphosis means a completely new form at the end. But Meganium is almost exactly the same as the first stage. So it's probably for the best that this over-designed creature was changed into one of the best middle evolutions in the game. The award for Why Isn't This a Starter? Goes to the Aquarius line. This little sea mammal thing is adorable. The middle stage is pretty great on its own, and the final stage is just awesome. I love me some Loch Ness Monster, and Aquarius, as the file name calls it, definitely has the plesiosaur look down. Somehow it reminds me of a cross between Dragonair and Samurott. I'm not sure if I like this better than Feraligatr, but it sure would have been amazing. And I honestly would love to see it show up as another option somewhere down the line. The award for Most Unnecessarily Menacing goes to Noctowl. Apparently Noctowl used to be a lot more bulbous, and shared the single foot stance with Hoothoot. But somehow, even while looking more cartoonish, it's a lot more intense with such a forceful gaze. Most people think Noctowl could be part Psychic type, but this has me wondering if they might have had Dark in mind instead. The award for We Should Have Known This Was a Fairy All Along goes to Meryl. It's funny how the Pokemon that was originally thought to be Pika-Blue was actually pink. And it's worth noting that Azumarill doesn't seem to show up anywhere. But honestly, if this wasn't a subtle hint that the fairy type was going to exist years down the line, I don't know what is. And the award for Thank Goodness They Were Kept Out goes to all of the baby Pokemon they decided not to introduce. I mean, look at these things. Some of them are really strange choices because the originals didn't seem like they would need babies. They really seem to want to show it off with the fire type because literally every common wild fire type from Gen 1 got a baby. Not to mention the ones that poke holes in their own lore, like the three-headed Doduo baby, or the young Paris that makes it look like the bug is the invasive species. But then of course there are the other versions of the babies that we did eventually get, so it's kind of a mixed bag. The award for Pokemon We Absolutely Need goes to Turban. For years I have been a skeptic of this whole scenario of Shellder being a part of Slowbro or Slowking. It doesn't look a thing like it. Nor does it look like Cloyster. So having a branched evolution of this Pokemon that actually looks the part would have been the perfect way to fill in the massive, dump truck-sized plot hole, even if the data doesn't support it being related in any way. I just wish they would have gone through with it. So, what do we think? Water Ice? Water Steel? The award for These Were Too on the Nose, so we need to make people guess more goes to Remoraid and Octillery. It's kind of common knowledge now that Remoraid and Octillery are based on man-made weapons mixed with fish. But these original forms are very clearly military hardware. You can clearly see the cylinder of the revolver, and Octillery is literally a tank. But dialing it back makes sense for a kids game, so that they don't have to get too violent and risk upping the rating. The award for Pokemon I Desperately Wish Were Real goes to the Wolf and the Tiger. Kotora and Raytora and Wolfmane and Warwolf. I think I have those names right. But oh boy, do these Pokemon look great! These teeny electric tigers are adorable, and give even the cutest of Pikachu clones a run for their money. And these ice-type wolf creatures don't actually appear to be wolves at all, but seem to be wearing a pelted disguise, much like Gabumon. They're all just kind of balls of fur, but I'm all for them. And if they wanted to make something like these, or just add these as they are into the game, I would be perfectly fine with it. And the award for "This is so bad, but somehow still better than what we got" goes to Licky Licky. Haas Nuggets, I do not like Licky Licky. For my full thoughts, refer back to the Sinnoh Pokemon Problems video, but even though this thing is a melted French chef or something, I like it way better already. Having more of the circle things does make it look a bit sick, but honestly, it just looks like a big fruit by the foot, which is leagues above the affront to nature that we ended up with. The award for 2 out of 3 ain't bad goes to this shark line. Encourage is an awesome half-shark dragging an anchor behind it. And it actually was going to be the first water steel type, which is the same as my all-time favorite. And its evolution is apparently called Grotesque, which that's not nice, it doesn't look that bad. But he also doesn't look like a shark, more like an angler eel type thing. But it's supposed to be a steel type as well. The only thing I'm not crazy about is the base stage, which is just kind of a regular fish. And it's not even a steel type, so really, why bother? The award for "I think I like it better this way" goes to the Hoppip line. I do have a newer found appreciation for this line in general, but I don't know. With their ears being so pronounced, and the big tails, they kind of look like cats to me. Even if their headgear is slightly different too. They're not really bad now, but the more organic blend of animal and plant is interesting to me, and almost reminds me of the Bulbasaur clan, which will never hurt. And the award for "You thought you were going to be part of a respected evolutionary line? Psych!" goes to Quillfish. Quillfish looks exactly the same, but apparently, once upon a time, it was going to have an evolution. To me, it almost looks like a mix between Whiscash and Corsola, though I'm sure it has nothing to do with those, nor really the sort of Harry Potter lightning bolt on its head. But as it stands, Quillfish is a one-off nobody that remains largely one of the most forgotten Pokemon in existence. The award for "Now that's a dragon" goes to Kingdra. Kingdra now is perfectly fine and works with the setup it was given. But this thing is fierce and intimidating. It's got actual dragon claws for fighting, as well as a snout that is clearly more in line with classic reptilian features. It wouldn't faze me one bit to see this thing breathe fire, despite it still being a water type. I can see why they didn't go this route, but if they had, I think less people would have minded about it being the only dragon type in Johto. The award for "This is the second stage" goes to Ledian. Seriously, it looks smaller and weaker than Ladybug, who's almost exactly the same as before. Unless this is somehow much bigger, which actually just makes it super creepy. But it does shed light on why Ledian's species name is the 5-star Pokemon, since it used to be quite literal. The award for possibly the most unintentionally creepy Pokemon goes to Norawara and Kyonpan. These two ghost-type Pokemon are really unsettling, because they seem to be the first in the possessed object crowd. The first one is a sort of voodoo doll with a giant nail through it, while Kyonpan is a sort of teddy bear or something taken over by a malevolent spirit. The data says that it evolves at level 1, which means if you even could find them in the wild, they would immediately evolve. But I find it more likely that you would have to breed for this first stage. And the award for most pronounced hat goes to Delibird and Murkrow. Murkrow gets by as is, but it's not as in-your-face that it's a witch's hat, hence the understandable leap to Honchkrow. But Delibird, or Delibird, is obviously just a Santa. The hat is a dead giveaway, and the feather beard is even more conspicuous than normal. But for both of these Pokemon, they lose their fancier headwear, so that you'd have to spend a bit more time determining which holiday they're all about. But the award for stripped of the most interesting subtext goes to Girafarig and Mantine. Girafarig has always been a dual Pokemon, but the original really hit that home with a full-blown second half at the other end instead of the smaller tail that we're used to now. And it even had a ghostly pre-evolution that was tied together. But what I find super interesting is Mantine, because from the bottom it's a friendly, almost angelic-looking Pokemon. But from the back, it shows a menacing face pattern. This displays a duality that doesn't show through in the finished product. But just a thought, shouldn't the angry face be the one pointed at the enemies? The award for, are you doing alright there, bud? Goes to Porygon 2. This is the original look of Porygon 2, as some sort of kids drawing version of Solgaleo. How exactly did they see this as a continuation of the weird duck thing from last time? I get that they wanted to show off the rounded features of the new graphics card, but this thing is drastically different from the version that we got. If this was the sequel, imagine what Porygon Z might have ended up looking like. And the award for, glad they grew out of their emo phase, goes to the Legendary Beasts. I really do like the Legendary Beasts, so I'm truly grateful that they weren't these. They almost look like horses, with manes styled by overzealous fashion designers. Even this random Raikou-Suicune fusion that was from a different part of the development process would have been better than this Fire Nation Growlithe, Weeping Willow Pony, and this dingo that obviously belongs to Valhallen from Dexter's Lab. The award for, I can't believe they haven't revisited this, goes to the planned Farfetch'd evolution. Apparently Farfetch'd has more of a fanbase than I realized, because one of the most popular fan-made Pokemon seems to be some kind of evolution for it. Though I think that mostly has to do with the fun they have coming up with the names. But Pokemon could have beat them all to the punch by creating an official one from way back in the day. And I'm just shocked that it didn't come back in Gen 4 with all of the other new evolutions from past gens. And the award for, you just had to stand out, didn't you, goes to Politoed. Politoed might be one of the least connected branched evolutions if going by looks alone. It's got half a curl on its stomach, and the rest of this green frog is completely separate from the rest of the tadpoles. This original look, however, still has the full spiral pattern, and sort of a more rounded body. So even though it's clearly still a green frog, it also has traits to connect it back to the rest of the line. But the award for most ridiculous branched evolution goes to this Bellsprout offshoot. Unlike the Farfetch'd evolution, I am so glad they never thought to bring this back. Because not only is it quite disturbing, but it doesn't make any sense. Victory Bell goes upside down while this one is just a Bellsprout on steroids? And if it did exist, what would be the point of Weepinbell completely losing its body when the stages on either side have one? I get that since they were version exclusives, they wanted to have the Bellsprout line keep up with the Oddish line, but it's probably for the best that they didn't. The award for missing link between Mienshao and Mew goes to Sneasel. Honestly, this thing looks nothing like a Dark type, so I wonder if it was originally supposed to be one in the first place. But seriously, does it not look like a Mew, but also a Mienshao? It's the perfect in-between. Although Mew is the ancestor of all Pokemon, so I guess it would make sense. And the award for looks most like you could insert it into any random generation and it blend in perfectly as a regular Pokemon goes to these cats. I don't think I ever really outright noticed that Johto didn't have a regional cat. But I guess they were right here and just didn't make the cut. Which is crazy, because they're so simple, while also having such distinct attributes like the bells, that I could see them in any generation to date. These Dark types truly must have come from the land of Pokemon somewhere, but it's a shame that we haven't been able to see it just because Johto decided to skimp on the traditions. The award for evolution that looks most like a pre-evolution goes to Blissey. I mean, come on. Doesn't this thing look way more like a Happini? I think it's just the proportions that make it look shorter than Chansey. The double holster eggs probably sounded great in the brainstorming session, but didn't come across as well in execution. And the giant heart on its head is slightly unsettling to me. I just hope it doesn't actually beat. The award for least effort evolution goes to this Pinsir evolution? It's exactly the same. This is just like Type Null all over again. It's the same Pokemon. Except this one seems to have even less prongs on the horns, but they just slapped on a Court of Owls mask and called it a day. I've wished for a long time that they would have kept the connections to the Scyther line, but if this was their way to do it, I'm kinda glad they opted out. The award for It Could Have Been Worse goes to Tyrogue and Hitmontop. The original look of these fighting types is just weird. Tyrogue is some kind of bear thing with boxing gloves. And then Hitmontop is just a monstrosity. Its face is on its stomach, and it actually has 3 legs, which means it either lost one or spontaneously grew one. It almost looks like that other spinning thing that was also cut from Pokemon at some point. But this somehow makes me appreciate these Pokemon more, which is quite a feat, because looking at the art, it definitely could have been worse. The award for Sneakiest Gen 4 Party Crasher goes to Leafeon. Seriously, even if it's at the end of the decks, this is very clearly Leafeon. Almost exactly the same as it was 2 whole generations later. It's also worth noting that if it had come out in Gen 2, it would have also been with Espeon and Umbreon, meaning it would have been another 3 evolutions at the same time, making me think that they would have kept it going in later gens. So just imagine all the possible evolutions that we've been robbed of over the years, just because Leafeon decided it needed more time to get ready. But at the very least, it's better than that weird Tangrowth with the Cheshire Cat smile. And the award for Pokemon I am legitimately most curious to see goes to Bamushika. At first glance, this appears to be just a seal, which we've seen before, but then you notice the giant fireball it's balancing on its nose. What's going on? Can it make those, or does it just juggle that one? I just want to see how it works. And yes, it's exactly what you think, because it's a water-fire type. It's crazy to me that we could have gotten a water-fire Pokemon all the way back in Gold and Silver. It could have very well changed the landscape of battling entirely, and I could see it becoming a competitive favorite for the limited battling scene. That might even be the case in today's climate if it were introduced as well. I would just love to see how it actually unfolds at some point in a Pokemon game. So, those are the awards for the Gold and Silver Beta Pokemon. There are of course other interesting details, so I recommend you go and check them out for yourself. What are your opinions on these Beta Pokemon? Let me know down in the comments. Also be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And we'll see you around next time!